We claim to have outgrown traditional religion, yet we spend our days policing our behavior with an unforgiving, dogmatic fervor. Removing the foundational authority from society did not free us from moral judgment. It simply left us guessing where the lines are drawn and who has the power to punish us for crossing them. Mine relied on a rulebook that was objective, institutional, and universally applied across society. Now, without an absolute structural backing, you create mass societal anxiety. People are forced to navigate severe penalties without an agreed-upon text to study. Friedrich Nietzsche mapped out this exact psychological crisis. He operated as a cultural diagnostician, predicting the specific psychological consequences of abandoning objective truth. He wrote during a period of rapid technological shift and massive institutional decline. His backdrop was nearly identical to our own. The question we have to answer is whether his 19th century logic holds up as a functional blueprint for surviving 21st century secular humanism. Secular humanism is a philosophy that embraces human reason and ethics while rejecting religious dogma. We can test this by applying 4 of his specific philosophical claims directly against today's cancel culture, social justice frameworks, and consensus morality. Using his philosophy as a practical tool means dropping the safety of the crowd. It requires taking on terrifying personal responsibility. In his writings, Nietzsche states that God is dead, pointing out that, in truth, there was only one Christian, and he died on the cross. He is explicitly declaring the inherent failure of institutional Christianity. He did not frame this assertion as a triumphant victory for atheism. He saw it as a dire warning about the total collapse of our universal moral safety nets. This flowchart shows how an institutional collapse flows into a distinct void, which we can call the truth vacuum. Entering this vacuum forces an immediate trade-off. You acquire immense intellectual freedom, but you lose the comfort of an objective rulebook. This forces the most daunting question in his text. Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? Becoming your own moral architect carries a massive psychological burden. You have to write the rules, execute them, and carry the consequences entirely without external validation. Modern secular humanism tries to dodge this burden. We attempt to replace the old rules with new social codes, but we fail to provide a new absolute authority to anchor them. If you accept the foundational authority is dead, relying on modern consensus morality is intellectually dishonest. You are following a script that no longer has an author. Operating in that truth vacuum introduces a specific hazard. Nietzsche warns us that silence is worse. All truths that are kept silent become poisonous. He demands radical truth. Our current society, conversely, intensely prioritizes politeness and strict social harmony. The behavioral input here is a conscious calculation. We suppress uncomfortable truths specifically to avoid public shaming or the mechanics of cancel culture. This diagram models the process. When you input repressed truths into a closed-loop system, they accumulate and metabolize into systemic and personal toxicity. Modern corporate structures and social networks actively incentivize this repression, applying a rigid pressure lid of short-term harmony to maintain superficial order. The Nietzschean alternative is blunt. You prioritize absolute authenticity, regardless of the immediate social friction or the alienation it causes you. Preserving social comfort by hiding what you know to be true internalizes the conflict. Over time, that quiet suppression destroys the individual's psychological health. The ultimate behavioral objective in his framework is found in the observation that which is done out of love is always beyond good and evil. In this precise philosophical context, love has nothing to do with romance or modern empathy. It is defined strictly as a value-creating force. This visual shows a binary scale of good versus evil, legal versus illegal. Notice how it's intersected and broken by the vector of value-creating love. Operating from this paradigm completely detaches a person from traditional societal judgment. You escape the grid, plotting an independent trajectory. The sheer magnitude of this trade-off is extreme. Achieving peak authenticity permanently revokes your access to traditional moral protection. Modern binary systems require compliance to function. They inherently view this level of unchecked individual freedom as a systemic threat that must be neutralized. True moral freedom is incompatible with a binary rulebook. It requires you to execute actions that society will inevitably label as dangerous. We have traced a clear three-step progression: recognizing the institutional collapse, refusing toxic silence, and acting beyond the binary. The overarching conclusion is clear. The ultimate existential trade-off is purchasing authenticity at the exact cost of certainty. This audience quadrant chart introduces a metric to determine who can psychologically afford this philosophy. The horizontal axis maps your need for social consensus, and the vertical axis maps your tolerance for existential burden. The average modern citizen relies on shared rules and external validation. They map directly into the bottom right quadrant, forming the modern status quo. To successfully execute this philosophy, you must plot yourself in the top left quadrant. This requires a low need for consensus and a high tolerance for burden. Nietzsche formulated a specific cure for the death of God, but that cure is effectively a lethal dose for anyone who remains reliant on the comfort of the crowd. If you are utility-focused and want to adopt this, understand the math. Pursuing this level of optimization and authenticity guarantees profound social isolation. If you are stability-focused, the warning is explicit. Attempting to dictate absolute personal morality without societal support will trigger paralyzing anxiety. Despite our modern secular branding, the ghost of traditional institutional morality still heavily polices our world every single day. Applying philosophy to modern life isn't about finding empowering life hacks. It is about calculating the exact, unforgiving price of the worldview you choose to inhabit.